I am. Good Lord, it's going to be one of those days. Hey, everybody, hope you're doing well. Hope you guys can hear me. I have all new streaming stuff going on here. I hope you guys can see me okie day. Those of you that are signed up tomorrow night, you're going to see me on the New Year's Eve special. We're going to have a good time with that. By the way, you can still, there's an echo. Okay, thank you. Echo. How about now? See, echo a little bit down further. Holy. It sounds funny, Brandon. Of course it does. Why would anything... It sounds like I'm a chipmunk. Okay, how about now? Is this better? Same, huh? Well, this is going to be a problem. Now it sounds okay? All right. I had a little bit of reverb on it. So the reverb button doesn't really work with this. You sound like a woman, Donald Duck, and yourself. Sounds complex. Sounds like a therapy session. Sounds like HIPAA has been breached. Now it's okay. Thank you for that. Yeah, this is what happens when you're the engineer, the producer, and the talent. Did he just call himself the talent? He did. Anyways, so you're going to sign up. Go right now. I'm not offended if you miss some of this. You can let it go in the background. And tomorrow night. So here's the itinerary tomorrow night. 10 o'clock, I'm going to be here on the YouTube. I'm going to do, thank you. I'm going to do some shuffle up and heal tomorrow night. Tonight's an energy report. We're going to take a look at the new moon craziness. By the way, have you noticed a lot of things have changed? We're going to talk about all the celebrity deaths that are coming out here right now. It's only the beginning, as Chicago might have mentioned once. It's only the beginning. That'd be a great song to sing, like right into 2025. So you're going to get all these instructions, by the way. So 10 o'clock, right here, I'm going to shuffle up and heal. I'm going to turn over tarot decks. I'm also going to be announcing a tarot class every month. It is going to be, it's kind of like a book of the month club, but with tarot. And basically what you're going to do is we're going to have a set Wednesday. The class is going to be on Wednesday. It'll end up being like the third Wednesday of every month. If you are signed up by the first of the month, you will get the deck of the month. This is a great way to build your repertoire. This is a great way to build your knowledge. This is a great way to get your guide. We're gonna probably be at a 2-to-1 ratio probably a 1-to-1 ratio between tarot and oracle. We're gonna pick apart the symbolisms of it. I'm gonna give you kind of a in the deck kind of just fresh open. I might take a month where I just fresh open it, or other months I might actually kind of like work with it already. But you'll see them here on the shuffle up and heal. Kind of goes hand in hand. I've got a couple of 3 great suppliers. I'm not going to be buying things through the internet, international kind of like, I don't know what I'm actually buying type of thing, but I hope it's okay. The Peanuts cards were kind of a gift. I cannot find them, and I've heard horrible stories about people getting, what do you call it? I almost said Taylor Dane. Might as well be Taylor Dane. Tell it to my heart. Tell me I'm the only one. However, my email. Oh yeah, Debbie, I actually got your email. I have your email. You're in. You're okay. You're okay. I'm glad you're out here on this. And so from 10 till about 11, I'm going to take a little bit of a short break. By the way, the only way you're going to get read on this is if you're signed up for the event for midnight. Then we're going to take a little break about 11:11. I'm going to come on. You're going to see the full studio in its full regalia. I think you're going to like it. It's what's behind the camera that matters. Put that away. Put that away. Nobody wants to see it. Also, we will have, so from 11:11, we're going to do some guided meditation work. I'm going to be doing some drumming. I'm going to be doing some sound bowl work. I am going to be pulling things together. And we will go till midnight. We will count down. We will go into the new year in meditative state. The world will pass us by. It will be a beautiful thing, right? Well, Black Belt, you can still sign up for it and get the recording. See how that works? Last of all, and very importantly, might I add, is you will also have an opportunity to stay until about 11:11 or 1:11, I should say, Eastern time, which will be 12:11 Central time. So we will include our Central time zone people. Please forgive me on the West Coast from doing that. From I can't believe it. I hope you guys can still hear me. Son of a bitch. We're going to work this crap out by tomorrow. Trust me. I've got a whole new Cat 5 coming in. It's supposed to be delivered today. It's the last thing that, like, for some reason, like, it doesn't happen to any of these others. And this is a long cable. This is like the furthest one, from the box, if you will. So I know it's a little bit far away, but that freezing stuff is going to kill me tomorrow. Then the next day, someday, and the next day, you will get the other information. You'll also get an opportunity to attend my Q&A on Thursday night, which is it Thursday? Yeah, I think it's Thursday. Or is it the following week? I think it's the following week. For the Q&A, right? Yeah, so Serena, listen, count down with us then. That's all good. And Serena, we're gonna have a great time. You're gonna start getting information. Those of you that have signed up for and enrolled in the year-long immersive, you're gonna start receiving information from me after the new year, which is in 2 days. And you're gonna enjoy some behind-the-scenes meditation to start your work with. You're gonna understand it as I kind of pull it together, and it's a really, really cool thing. It's ambitious. It is going to challenge me as a teacher. It is going to challenge you guys as students. And hopefully it'll bring out the best in you. So without further ado, wackadoo. Oh, and by the way, next week I am announcing January and February into March. Yes, Phoenix, it's been a whirlwind. If I told you everything, well, let me talk about the astrology because I think you're going to understand, right? Yeah, this is me on a holiday break, Amanda, just to let you know. So we're going to take a look at the astrology because it's a doozy. Like we've had we've had like 8 or 10 celebrity deaths. I mean, Jimmy Carter passing, Linda Lavin today, the Ricky Henderson. Oh gosh, there were like 3 of them this week, even before Linda Lavin. And personally, I have 6 people that I know directly or indirectly that have passed. And it's a bit of it's not a meat grinder. It's kind of let me explain it to you in astrological terms and it'll make sense to you, right? So you have the nodes, the north and the south node, they're hanging on to the last bit of Julia Hussey, Olivia that passed in the last like 2 weeks, since like just before Christmas. Yeah, there's been a whole handful. But the north node and the south node they actually work in reverse. So they're actually getting ready to go into Pisces and in Virgo. So the south node is going to be in Virgo. The north node is going to be in Pisces. This is going to be a really good thing for solutions. Like when we first get into it, I think it's February. This is part of the reason why January is going to be a little bit tough with a lot of the placements or what have you. But where it's going to hit us in the gut here is you have Lilith in opposition to the north node, like it's conjunct with the south node. And just for funsies, it is technically, because it is a nodal placement, it is in opposition to Chiron as well. So a lot of people are dredging up like those old things. And you know that feeling that you have when like you try and you try and you try and you try and you try? And you eventually just come to the realization like this just isn't for me anymore. People are doing that with their lives. People are just like, you know what? I'm 80 something years old. I'm 90. I'm 100. You know, shit's done. Like I'm done here. So this square to the new moon, right? To this new moon is what is really triggering a lot of these exits. This is also the reason why so many astrologers were talking about how Donald Trump might not take office, just to keep you guys relevant here. Because, you know, there's three things that are good for ratings. When is Trump going to get arrested? When is he going to die? And when is he going to whatever, right? So the old stuff of you like reviewing, like, okay, what am I going to get done? What projects am I going to, you know, tackle? You know, the Capricorn new moon always brings that out because it's either plus or minus to the new year, right? So it's going to bring up the idea of like, what am I going to release? What am I going to recreate? What am I going to, you know, approach in a new way? You know, when you don't give something energy, how much importance does it have? And that eventually kind of becomes part of the dialogue here too, right? So part of that conversation is that tough energy. It is a fixed energy, or I'm sorry, it's a cardinal energy rather. You know, you've got the you guys can see me okay, right? I'm kind of in the right hand corner of the screen. But yeah, when people say like, where's Brandon? It makes me wonder if I freeze or whatever. But because you have these fixed signs, right? You have these fixed signs of, you know, the hard ways, the old ways, right? And it ends up being a tough thing of you saying, okay, what do you want to regenerate? What do you want to start anew? And part of that is a review of life. Part of that is like, okay, you know what? Next year I'm going to do this. And we talk about it like, you know, New Year's resolution. For a minute, New Year's resolutions are shit. New Year's resolutions really don't. Um, New Year's resolutions really don't work. They really aren't a good primer for where you want to go. And goal setting, you know, so many people in like the spiritual community end up not making any goals at all. And with that in mind, what happened? Yeah, exactly. Correct, Linda. Stick around, Linda. Love that kind of comment. Linda talked about Chiron going station yesterday, which means that it's not in retrograde anymore, and that it is bringing up the old issues. Like, in other words, it comes right up, right? So you do things like intentions, you do things like goal setting. And, you know, people that are in the 9 to 5 business world, it's about your numbers. It's about like, well, I'm going to be able to do this and I want to be able to do that. And I'm going to be, you know, I want to be, you know, right now I'm number 3 in the company, but I want to be number 1 by the end of next year. And careful what you manifest, because they may exit, they may quit, they may take all the business with them, they might die, they might whatever. So instead of it being about other things, make it about what your personal best might be. Instead of doing it in comparison, do it in comparison to yourself, because that's the true growth in all of this. True growth is you saying, I used to be here and now I'm here. And that's what growth really is. And that'll be something connected to it. Hey, Warrior Widow, 5th time Sedona has come up for me today. I have an old colleague that asked me about my trip to Shasta and Sedona. They want to kind of know both. They're leaning towards Shasta. But I hope you find the right portal there. I hope you find the right healing. My suggestion to you is also look up which ones are feminine, which ones are masculine, so you identify like where your work needs to be next year in either, you know, kind of actioning or in your intuition. That's always a good thing. It's always a good thing. That's the thing I learned in Sedona. And Shasta, I learned I was on a mission. Boy, was that a thing. But with the astrology, this is also an opportunity for you to do that hardcore look. Look at like where you were at last year. Be honest with yourself. There is a spread, and by the way, those of you that are in my weekly B learned about the spread today. Is about your personal optimization. It kind of combines a little bit of the new agey stuff along with the hey, yeah, that's right, ketchup. Love it. And being able to pull yourself towards like a really healing dynamic, because you can't get there if you're not honest with yourself. If you don't look at yourself and be like, this is where I screwed up. And I lost somebody this week who I was really honest with myself. Like, this is a relationship that should not have gone sideways, and it did. Yeah, intentions, set a New Year's, make it a revolution. Instead of making it about a resolution, making it about your resolve. I resolve to improve this. I resolve to never go back. I resolve to whatever, right? And I think when we have an honest conversation with ourselves, similar to what I did with this person who is a handful of years older than me, she was early on in my entire spiritual world, and really kind of helped build it for the first couple of years. But the business side of it, I learned a lot in three ways. One, that we weren't on the same page from the beginning. Just because she sold crystals doesn't mean we're on the same page. She was about an MLM with oils, and she was about, having free classes. And I'm just like, that's not a model that works for me. Like, it just doesn't work for me on a lot of levels. It only really works if they buy crystals and you pay rent. Like, but people would come to these free classes, sign up for the upline, and then, and then I'm like, well, you circumvented anything where I could have made money. Then you circumvented me in making money in the long run. And third of all, I think MLM should be illegal. Like, I just had a core basic, they give you this belief system, and I'm not knocking people that make their living with this, because I know there are some, but don't fool yourself that you own a business when you're associated with an MLM. You're just not. If you have an upline, you have a marketing responsibility, and you don't own a business. You have to mind your business, but it is not owning your own business, because I'm creating things. I'm creating my own Oracle deck. I was creating my own essential oil blends. I was working with apothecaries that were independent, smudge sprays, all that stuff. But I was creating it. I was part of the creation of it. When you're part of an MLM, they basically tell you what you can sell. And then they say, well, you can do a make and take and you can combine it. And it's like, not the same. Not the same. You're doing it for the sole purpose not to create something, but rather to find a new way to sell your product, basically, is what that is. So we didn't see eye to eye, and we had a fallout, and it was bad. And I said stuff I shouldn't have said ever to another human being. I own it. I apologized for it in the moment. I apologized for it since. And anytime that I tried to rebuild it, she politely said no. I think it had a lot to do with the people she was surrounded by, like, not contributing to the cause, so to speak. But it was a hard lesson. It was a good lesson. And then there was some personal stuff. There was always personal stuff, and it wasn't inappropriate. It was more like, I don't think that a Reiki master teacher should ever talk about a session or ask somebody about a session or be curious about how a reading went. Like, there really is a HIPAA to this. And, you get really good at presenting that somebody might need help without saying why they need help. Like, hey, it would be really good is if you guys invited so-and-so to that outing that you guys are doing. If you're not comfortable with it, no big deal. But if you bring them along, they would find a lot to it. And then somewhere along the lines, they find out that this is something that they always wanted to do, and it was whatever. But then they're telling the story. I'm not telling the story. And there was a breach there, like tenfold. And I said, I'm not okay with that. So it's kind of like we just had challenges, right? And by the way, in my own fair game, I had to learn that lesson along the way as well. I had to learn that, oh boy, you can't, like, I had to be able to get good at presenting it without ever giving the details, and saying, hey, could you maybe, slip this crystal to somebody? Why? What's going on? Just give them the fucking solidite, will you? Like, just shut up and do it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I finally kind of, like, I was becoming that guy. And I'm like, some of it was kind of tongue in cheek, and some of it was kind of like I had to get mean about it because the cattiness and the whatever, it's like, oh my God, like, I don't know what the new age is going to look like. I don't know what the age of Aquarius is going to be specifically, right? But I can tell you there won't be the catty backstabbing middle school bullshit. And a lot of these shop owners have that. And again, I wanted to give the opportunity to flip the script and say, hey, I don't want you frozen in time like that for me. And I was the bad guy. The guy that writes the first check is always the bad guy. The guy that makes the business decision is always the bad guy. And I had to be okay with that. I had to be okay with that. But then the other part of it too is boy, what a reminder we're all human. I had a client that I had coached for 3 years, 2+ years off and on, didn't make it. I'm not going to go into details, but she just didn't make it. And there's always a responsibility to that. There's always a part of this that you need to pull out of it and say, this part was me, this part was them. They had to take responsibility for themselves and their health, right? Yeah, Hattie, it's interesting. And it's how you manage it. By the way, you guys are really talking Sedona. You guys are talking me into Sedona. You should probably go to Sedona. What do you think? What do you think? If there was a trip to Sedona, would you go? Pulling it together. Yeah, it's funny. It's an odd thing because there was another person in play during this time. And Nessa's like, maybe. I know a couple of people are just like, can we go again? I have the coolest picture, and you guys will see it tomorrow if you're signed up for it. Of one of the Sedona retreat and everybody that went on it. It's a great picture. It's a great picture. I don't know, Melissa, you're talking me into it. When I win the lottery, enough of that. You can go. We just have to plan it differently. It's funny you should say that because that's actually one of the things. Come to LA first. Black Bell, you're trying to make it easy for you. You can bring the 3 pups. Bring them along. Dole them out. Call them therapy animals. It's funny you should say winning the lottery because there was an interesting conversation over the holidays. My niece is, she's this beautiful, wonderful soul, and she's got a, for 22, she's a little naive. She's a little. There you go. Now you're thinking. I'd probably fly to LA and then come back to Sedona. And then Casadega. Casadega is on the list. I will tell you that I'm waiting for the paperwork to come back to finalize Casadega. I will be in Casadega in March. And I'm going to do, I'm going to be at the bookstore there. And then I'm going to do a private show just outside of there. They don't want me to do mediumship there because I'm not one of their club, but they don't mind selling my book and making money off of me. It's okay. I love them. I mean, and I'm just repeating what they said. So interesting conversation. My niece, salt of the earth, beautiful girl. And when she was away at college, she started doing this, she was traveling abroad. And of course, where does she pick but Hawaii? And damn straight. I'm like, okay, where are you going? Going to the Ring of Fire? Here you go. And she went there once and she had an amazing time. She was learning English. She was learning how to teach English as a second language. But what they were doing was they were almost kind of like simulating whether you were going to go to Bolivia or Honduras or wherever to be able to teach this. English as a second language. It was a big piece to her degree and all that other good stuff. And what also happens, for that is that most people get recruited into cults between the age of 19 and 25. That is a true statement of fact. And my niece, I love her to death. She's involved with the church now, and it's about the church, and I'm okay with that. Like, she should explore that, but per my coaching, I'm just like, listen, just keep a level head about this. Let's not lose ourselves here, right? So with that in mind, she was talking about the $1 billion lottery, and she's like, well, I didn't win it. But then she started to talk about so much that she would do if she won the lottery. And it was helping out this person and that person and that sort of thing. And, to her church in the military. Yeah, by the way, that's the only part of the reason why they don't want you to sign up. The military is the hardest thing to get into. And people don't realize this. Like, you have to be in good shape. You have to have an IQ level that meets or matches above whatever, and you can't be a slouch. It's down to about 10 or 11% of the population that would even qualify for that. But anyways, I've done work at Lilydale as well. Stay tuned with that one. I have a good friend of mine who's actually been a presenter there. I have a couple of, I know a handful of people, and I've been asked to do stuff. Lilydale they're trying to corporate this, and it's not, whatever. I believe she went to Oahu, Catherine. I knew you would ask me that, by the way, Hawaii. She was on the main island for a while, and then she went to Oahu. And she had, but she was talking about this, and she was talking about, you could be. You could be a prissy teen too. Don't rule it out. Keep it on the board. Whiteboard it, as they say, right? Put it in the parking lot. Let's not rule it out yet. But the part of it that was interesting to me is that she had all of these great ideas, and they were great ideas. And I kind of said to her, guys, what's the deal? Like, why do you have to win the lottery to do all this help? Why do you need to wait for that? And there's a metaphor here, and it kind of sets up for the year-long immersive, because we always are waiting for the next thing to happen. Oh, I want this to be clear for me. I am a medium that walks into a room, turns on my PA, announces myself. I go through a routine, which is very important, before the beginning, during, and then after. Bam, bam, bam. Like, I have a formula. It doesn't look formulaic. It looks very organic. All these things I had to work on. I had to work on them, right? I have done, I figured this out the other day. I have done over 500 live shows. That's insane. Between home parties, between whatever, I've been put on the spot with a firing squad of unknowns and walked out with nothing but my intuition, nothing but my spirit guides, nothing but my experiences to connect them with their loved ones. That's it. That's not even counting how many individual readings I've done. Right? I want to go back and apologize to the first reading I ever did. Right? Because I know it wasn't the best, or at least I know it hadn't evolved yet. Somewhere in between year 3 and 4, I really started to get it. It's also when the adoption happened. So That's when things really started to take off. So there's a metaphor here that, like, when I started to connect the dots and be like, this is what I'm supposed to do, this is how I'm supposed to go about it became apparent to me that if I lived and worked within spirit, whatever that means to you, that I would get better at this and I would connect the dots better. I would see the world differently. My guides would be like, oh, he's figuring it out. Okay, give him more. We walk out and we're like, why don't I get these things? Why don't I whatever? And then you have to also accept the idea that there are certain things you're never going to know. Get used to disappointment. You don't get to be attached to that person and ask them 6 months later, so was I right? Which, by the way, is a tongue-in-cheek thing that I might say sometimes, but it's a tongue-in-cheek thing. I'm not chasing, right? Yeah, no one starts with a finished product. I love that. And, being able to work the clay, we're either really good at the beginning or we're really good at the end, right? I worked for a company, its initials were RHI, publicly traded. They were great at the new hires. The new hires got so many resources. They also were able to say, well, we gave you all these resources. If you fail, it's on you. And then they were really good at celebrating people that did great. They never really figured out how to take talent and grow it. And they were constantly replacing people. And they would always have a big hiring push coming into the first of the year. And basically what they were recruiting were people that were disgruntled, people that were dissatisfied, people that weren't looking at about how they could improve themselves, but rather they'd already blamed the company and they were ready to leave. They got their Christmas bonus, their year-end bonus, whatever it was, put in their notice, would start the second week in January. Nobody was of quality coming out of the gate first of the year that were new hires. They just weren't, because they were pissed off, they were disgruntled. It was an energy you had to work with and see it and that sort of thing. And, over time, I raised my hand. I go, guys, this doesn't work. Don't you see? Like, wait until after the first of the year. Let somebody kind of go through, the herpy derpies of like, oh my God, do I have another year of this? Like, you still get a piece of the vulnerability, but you're not getting the let's hurry up and jump ship people. You're going to say to them, like, listen, we're going to go. Part of the reason why you go through multiple interviews is so that then they check your head. So that then they don't want a desperate move all the time. Right. Oh, Black Bell, listen. Okay. I could have told you that was coming. I would keep the lines open that first full week, by the way. And, not for nothing, that's how I built my legacy there, because they turned around and the one district vice president, whatever, points right at me and goes, you're a manager. And I go, what are you saying? He goes, that has been an institutional thing in this organization for years. And whenever somebody's pushed back on it, they just say, that's normal, for us to do that. And, for whatever reason, it doesn't work. And they say, okay, well, what's different? How do you change it? And then they would say, well, I don't know. Well, I literally came in with a game plan to say, you don't hire for the first of the year. You hire for the end of the first quarter. Guess what? They were running at about a 40%, like 40% of the people that were hired at the first of the year would make it to the end of the year. When they switched it to the end of the quarter, it jumped to like 65%. Statistically, that's a huge thing in hiring. And now you can say, and of course, I'm sitting there and they were like, this is why it's a good thing. And then, this is why it's kind of like, projected and protected and promoted and all the other core values in there, which are rhetoric really. But when it came time for somebody to say, hey, listen, and this is a reason why, I got the, this promotion and all this other stuff. And they were making a big deal about it. And then somebody, all it takes is one asshole, one fly in the ointment to turn around and say, well, of course they made it to the end of the year. They got through the toughest month. You gave them a bypass. You took up to 3 months away from them. You took away January, they only had to work 11 months of the year. Well, anybody can do that. Of course, the ratio goes up. They weren't addressing it as a culture. They were addressing it as a chance or by luck. And luck is the corner of opportunity and hard work. There is a little bit of luck involved. If you only rely on luck, you better work on those two dynamics of opportunity and hard work. And people hated this guy that brought it up anyways. People had mixed reviews about me. Again, water under the bridge. But the thing I started to realize is what people's motivations really were. It actually got me, I learned a lot working for them because I learned like what motivation was. They thought that motivation was money. They thought that was the sole thing. I mean, I did great. I did fantastic for a bunch of years. I, pick up the phone, could carry on a conversation with the CEO, COO, international, whatever. None of that stuff bothered me. But what it was getting me ready for is to be thrown into any situation and be like, here's a spirit that you might not really understand at first. You're going to need a lot of diversity because their great-great-grandfather is of a completely different ethnic and culture, and you're going to need to be able to have the patience to figure out what the hell they're talking about. Right? So it primered me to be able to say, I'm going to have reckless abandon and no fear and do what I do. For a kid that was at the time had an associate's degree, calling up MBAs and shooting the shit about their international business. Some people call that faking it till you make it. Well, I was making it pretty quickly, so there was no faking it. And it became this no fear paradigm. And I also had no fear with saying, that doesn't work. Why are you doing that? People don't realize that when we stick with things that are broken because we're comfortable with that stickness, with that comfort. And then that is why we say, we're just going to hold on to this. And then the tower card comes. And guess what? You get fired. Guess what? Your place burns down. Guess what? They break up with you. Because you didn't address things. You didn't hit them head on. And then you sit there and throw up your hands and you're like, oh my gosh, why didn't I see this coming? Because you didn't address it. You didn't do the hard work. You didn't work with the opportunity, so you never got lucky with it. And again, this isn't about luck. This isn't about, and by the way, replace luck with manifestation, with the word manifestation. Right? Because what you need to kind of recognize is that if you're not taking the personal accountability to it, nobody else is going to match your energy to it. It's just not going to happen. Like if you're not doing well, and I'm sticking with the job thing because relationships can be tough and really kind of below the belt this time of the year. But, if you're in a position where you're coming into work and you're miserable every day, you're stealing from the company. They're stealing from you. They're getting your best years, whatever that might look like. When you say, hey, listen, black belt, it's illegal, just to let you know. You can't get fired for cultural reasons. You don't fit in our culture is a buzzword and any lawyer would jump all over it. And I'm not saying you want to go back there, but it's an institutionalized bullshit thing where people are like, oh, I didn't fit into their culture. I'm sorry, what? Like, that's just bullshit. I'm sorry. You didn't fit in with my culture. Your vibration is off. Did you have a conversation with me with how I didn't fit into your culture? Because soon enough, they're going to get to skin color. And soon enough, you're going to be, can you speak into the microphone, please? Bunch of fucking assholes. I can't believe that. This is the thing. Here we go, guys. I'm triggered. This is the reason why the Trump culture is so abominant. This is it right here. You can blatantly look at somebody and be like, well, I'm just going to change the verbiage so that then it sounds like an innocent nonchalant. Right? Yeah, and be able to kind of like, I'll never forget. I had one position. I was an HR manager. This is a fun story. They were adjacent to the auto industry. I wasn't in the auto industry, but they had a software supply type of thing. And the CEO, the president, the original president from like 1980, whatever. And by the way, the program was in COBOL, and they needed somebody to recruit people in COBOL in 2008. It was one of my first kind of like, it turned into a consulting gig, whatever. And so the first thing you do whenever you start a position of, anything where you're on the arc of the tree up here and you're not an individual contributor, you look at your SWOT, right? Your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, your threats. And the first thing that I identified was this owner who was interviewing women that they were plucking out of dealerships. That, by the way, they got it because their uncle worked there, their boyfriend worked there, their whatever. They didn't know shit about cars. Excuse my French. The mass majority of them. There were a few of them though that were like A++ techs that knew exactly what was going on, but they weren't in the supply side. They were actually in the wrench side. Like the wrench girls, they knew their stuff. They knew it better than the guys because they knew they needed to. But generally, the people that they would end up hiring are people that like weren't in love with the auto industry. Let's just say it that way. They would come into this, right? To Cobalt, yeah. And when they started to, yeah, absolutely. I love Rochelle's take on that. Rejection is protection in redirection. So, but you still have to analyze why that rejection happened. If it comes down to, they're going to culturally, push me out, so be it. So this president, ancient president, we're going to call him. I went around and I talked to a bunch of the people that worked there. 10-minute coffee. Like, I wasn't going through like the bobs. Like, I wasn't trying to analyze whether anybody should be fired. I just wanted to get to know people. So what do you like about the company? What do what would you change? How are you hired? How'd you get here? All those things. And this one woman said, yeah, it's still kind of funny because in my interview, he asked me to jump up and down for him. The only disturbing part about that was that there were 4 other people in the room, and she wasn't the only story. So I went, all right, guys, a couple of things we're going to do. We're going to get some standardization here. We're going to have some whatever. Brandon's going to be involved in the hiring process, and we're going to be able to be like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. And then they were like, well, it's kind of water under the bridge, and you're making a big deal about it. And I said, well, human resources doesn't create revenue. And the new president was like, well, yeah, we understand. So you're all overhead. You don't really do anything around here. And I said, you're right. I don't. However, everything that I'm doing is protecting you from yourself. So if you ever make any allusion to this again, you'll be reprimanded. And then they're like, well, you're not going to reprimand the president. I said, you will. I said, I will. Because we're about to put some things in place because it's in the handbook and this is how we have to do it. Nobody is above the law. By the way, go ahead and apply any of the parallels to the current or the incumbent administration, which may or may not have helped them. So, and by the way, each one of these people didn't even know better. They just thought it was funny because they came from a car culture where that was innocent to them. And if you've ever worked in a garage, ladies, you know what I'm talking about. It is not pro lady, not pro woman. It's not pro lady. And we'll leave it at there. Right. So I'm like, these people that are being marginalized need to be protected. The people that are been in power, you don't get to pull out the, oh my gosh, but I'm boss. I get to do those things. So sorry. What do you need? $100? Like, that was their philosophy. It really was, because that's the car industry. Well, I told you that story to tell you this one because then, and there were some serious challenges with this. Like, they had these install groups that would go out and everybody got a stipend to get hotel rooms. And then you come to find out they would only get one hotel room and there were 3 guys and 1 girl in one room. And I'm like, guys, no. And I don't care if they're okay with it. Enough of the we're okay with that. And then when I raised my hand and I said, I'm taking a look at the receipt that you turned in, and I'm seeing that you got a $17 steak. And by the way, this is 2000, whatever, right? I get it. Have yourself a steak. We love that you're going to have a steak on the road, kick back, get the appetizer. The part I'm having a challenge with is your $42 bar bill. And all of a sudden, it was like I was the bad guy, because that was their cult. Their culture was, we're going to go on the road and get shit-faced. We're going to make bad decisions. We're going to be, hey, Elizabeth, how are you? LB, hang in there. Tart and Spice, I can't kiss ass either. I'm horrible at it. Tracy sort of saved him from a lawsuit. But when I start, and again, I'm not going to say something specific because they did actually have an actionable thing eventually. But, the person that replaced me was a car guy, quote unquote, understood their culture better, right? Yeah, now it's 2 drinks, Black Bell. Back then it was like, I think they were at $3 beers. So that's 15 beers, 12 anyways. Right? Makes sense. So hey, Tart and Spice, you do know I own a publishing company, right? Hey, Tart and Spice, send me an email. I'm going to put my email out there. Tart and Spice, send me an email. I'll get you connected to Daryl. You guys can work something out. I'll tell her that we needed to connect. And by the way, we have a very reasonable, we have a profit share commission based structure. Yeah. You guys do know that I own a publishing company, right? I should probably plug that right now. We had 5 books come out this year. We are Amazon bestsellers. You can log in, sign up, send us messages through there. Yeah, we've got we're actually going to have a couple of really cool projects out there. Yeah, I'd love to. And actually, this is one of my goals. By the way, this is a perfect example. So my quote unquote business goals are to find 5 really dynamic authors for 2025. Based on the size of our house and the number of things that are on the board, the number of things that I have coming out next year. We have 2 authors. We have one author in house that has a series coming out. She's already got her book pulled together, right? These are, we love stories about the journey, but it doesn't have to be. I'm putting out my first piece of fiction next year. But it's also, the astrology book is coming out, the tarot book. And by the way, stay tuned after the first of the year. And actually, the people that are going to be connected to the meditation tomorrow night, I am going to have a little advertisement for the Tarot Club, which is a monthly tarot. Did I just mention this? I think I did. But that's going to be fun. Yeah, Tracy, send us your stuff. I'd be happy to set up a conversation, get you in queue to get your projects together. There you go, Tart and Spicy. We love that idea. There is a cost to it because it is kind of a self-contained, but it's nowhere near. Like, you go to a lot of these publishing houses, $3,000 is kind of cheap. Most of them are $7,000 to $12,000. And then they take a cut of everything you do they take like 30-40%, and you're like, what the frig? We actually have a very reasonable thing where it's just $1 a book. And you're like, how do you do it on $1 a book? Because that's not our goal. Our goal is actually to get things out there, to get your story out there. And there's a lot of very kind of cool ideas that are out there. Um, my biological brother's son found me. Oh, I love Tart and Spice. Like, that is our wheelhouse. Warrior Widow, that is our wheelhouse, right? And listen, Natural Honey, she might need a little bit of time before she gets there, right? But if your goal is to get out the word of your story, then there you go. And by the way, if you're a light worker, if you do any of this work, Tracy, I'm almost. By the way, we do have a racy novels section. Just saying, I'm about to do the narration on that. I play the gentleman caller in the Audible book. Oh, and that's the other thing. All the supports, having it go to Audible, having it go to those things. And by the way, when it goes to Audible, it's a really, really kind of cool thing, right? Yeah, gosh, so many. Listen, once we get you on track, so long as we get through the editing, your book will be out there. I'm so game. Warrior Widow, that is exactly the type of stuff we love to publish. I do bring pizza. Do you bring the pizza? Yeah, I will. I don't know what that means necessarily. I hope you're not setting me up for some sort of horrible joke later. Is that what you're doing? Yeah. So, and by the way, we pride ourselves on resource stuff. So if she wants to pick up some of that work, not that we're trying to be Fiverr, but we love to kind of be a clearinghouse for those things, right? And being able to kind of present that, and our editing team is really good at like bringing out the best in that process. You know what I'm saying? Um, and we can't say it's too cold because it's 58 degrees out right now. Yeah, I'm back. Oh, hey, Anessa, Anessa, I want to kind of stay on this right here. With your brother in Odessa, is he a soldier? Is he doing some peacekeeping stuff? Yeah, when I'm not blinking. Um, Curious about that, right? Yeah, Tracy, no wrong with doing doing that as well. Yeah, and here's my point to the energy report. Expect this stuff to be there. Oh, he's not in good health. I get you. Okay, so he can't necessarily get out. Interesting. Yeah, so it's for your brother. By the way, I've been stacking my cards. I have this really beautiful pouch for one of my decks. So it's Capricorn energy, some Earth energy. I'm going to give you and I'm not really doing readings tonight, guys, but the Queen of Pentacles here, Vanessa, for your brother. This is caring, compassionate, but very practical. Like, let's not get over our skis here. Yeah, we're being bound by some things. What makes him tick? He's going to have a choice. Should he stay or should he go? He's either going to pick up and be like, all right, guys, I'm out of here. Everything's good. Or it'll be like, well, we wish there was something we could do. I wish for a safe return or transition wherever he decides. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, Warrior Widow. I hope you go. Oh, there you go. Hope you journal that. I mean, one of the things that you can do for next year, get yourself a simple journal. I don't care if it's a composition book or whatever. Just jot stuff down. By the way, just in case you guys need to see what you wrote, if you can't. He's a brilliant electronics engineer and fixing stuff like monitors for the Army. Well, listen, I said it once, I say it again. I'm pro-Ukraine, not necessarily because I appreciate Ukraine's politics. I appreciate the idea that they're not the ones that started bombing. You know, why do we have wars? Like, why do we have wars? Why does it come to war? I want you guys to recognize how much trouble Putin is in. He has North Korean soldiers in there. And maybe it has something to do with him just wanting to assert aggression. Fine. But the fact that he said yes and has them on the front line for them, you know, one of the things that I spoke to someone who I know that has worked in military operations. We'll just leave it there. Just take time for yourself, warrior. Don't set goals. Set the parameter of a routine. I want you to find your routine in Sedona. Don't write your book. Find your routine. Got it? We use war. We use war in our 3D world as an act of aggression, as a threat to places where we don't have to use war. So in other words, it's like, you know, when you feel like, oh, well, I'm just going to assert my authority. That way you'll back down. If there's one thing that the United States does, is that when used properly, let's be honest, Nagasaki and Hiroshima set a tone to be like, we're not afraid to actually go there. Is it horrible and devastating? 100%. But the cultural dynamic of what Japan was doing at the time wasn't evil. It was pursuant of honor. And that, unfortunately, isn't something to be negotiated. So the United States had to cripple Japan. They actually, if they really wanted to destroy the Japanese people, they would have destroyed Tokyo because they could have reached. They chose Hiroshima and Nagasaki for a very specific reason, because it was building their military base. They were building tanks and bombs and guns. So the United States said, we're going to make it so they can't fight anymore. Not we're going to wipe out all their people. So even in this act of brutality, there was a level of mercy, because understand why we're doing it. We're not killing for killing's sake. We're killing the cities. We want to kill the plant. We don't want to kill the person anymore. We want to kill the plant. We're doing this for their own good, in a way, in a weird sort of way. And again, still brutal. I'm not excusing it. But since then, pretty much even through Vietnam was kind of more of like, let's put boots on the ground and kind of like push them back against the parallel and whatever. And we lost the Vietnam War, guys. Like people can beat their chest. The Korean War was a negotiated standoff. And again, not right or wrong, negotiated in hand, whatever. All you need to know is that the two people involved with Desert Storm were Dick Cheney and Colin Powell. Thank you very much, George Carlin. But when used effectively, we were able to kind of like be like, we've done it before. We're not afraid to do it again. Right. And for some reason, people back down, and some people would stand down, and some people would be whatever. The thought and the idea of it was that we were being judicious with keeping people in check. Being able to say to Russia, saying, okay, you did this thing in the middle of the night. You have the Eastern Bloc. Thank you very much. No more. We're going to have NATO, and this is going to be the line in the sand. We were good at drawing lines in the sand. And then we started to hear things like Nicaragua. Then we started to hear things like the war profiting in Iraq. You didn't have any weapons of mass destruction? I'm sorry, what? Wasn't the weapons of mass destruction the reason why? Wasn't it like first the towers, then... I'm sorry, what? Then we started to pause a little bit and be like, are we being the official guardian of truth and justice in the American way? Or are we simply being a bully? And it's funny, when you follow the politics of it, when Bernie Sanders, who has, in no uncertain terms, orchestrated some of the best social programs the United States has, right? Yeah, the antiquities, sure. But you see that the things that were really coming out of these wars weren't stipulations. They weren't freedom of anybody. You ask anybody in Iraq, in modern Iraq right now, of the United States influenced government that's there, they basically took it back. They're a secular Muslim state, which, by the way, we should be a secular Christian state. I get it. I understand that most of the people are Christian. But that's the problem with us. We're becoming militant about everything. Everything. And we have people that sacrifice their lives, and for what? We have widows in the world because of somebody else's greed. We have children being raised with no fathers or mothers because war. Then you follow down the line. And you talk to anybody that was in Afghanistan. The United States government went into Afghanistan when Russia was kicked out. Between 1979 and 1983, there was the Afghani war, there was all this stuff, and then finally Russia just said, you know what, it's not worth it. United States operatives went in and basically said, listen, we're going to pay you to grow opium. And they're like, why would we grow opium? Like, yeah, we do a little bit of it, but we need corn, we need rice, we need all of these other things, right? And then they said, oh no, just like they did in the United States. Farm aid was a response to the government supplement of corn. Basically, if you want to be a farmer in the United States now, you're going to do cattle or you're going to do corn. That's it. Because those are the subsidized farming markets. I could be wrong. There could be others. But when I worked for a local farm bureau, they were just like, oh yeah, these guys that do like bean crops and apple orchards and all that stuff, they don't see a dime. But you grow corn for them to get the ethanol out of it, oh yeah, they love you. Beef? They love beef. If they could figure out how to splice two cows together, they'd do it. Right? They get the ethanol out of it, Tracy. You're right. So they went in and they did this little program in Afghan, and they basically said, we need to turn all of these things into opium. And the Afghan farmers are looking at each other going, how's that going to help us? They're like, we're going to keep paying you. That's how. We don't want you to ask questions. We want you to drop it off here. We want you to do it here. And by the way, opium production is not illegal in Afghanistan, even though we've been in control of their government off and on for the last 20 years. They have no intention on taking out the drug supply. Do you know why? Because they were shipping the opium to China. They were shipping it to Russia. They were trying to drug them. Inadvertently, what was happening was that heroin was getting to the United States. And then you have the synthetics like fentanyl that are just, it's just a bad idea all the way around. But nobody's actually protecting us at the source. Oh, and by the way, you take some of those daisy cutters. Remember the daisy cutters from Desert Storm and Desert Shield? When it would calculatedly drop it into foxholes or dwellings. And basically, it was like a firework. Like, you know, those ones that shoot up and then they go boom, and then a whole bunch of things go blah, 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 pop, 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 spin, 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 spin. That's basically what a daisy cutter does. Only it is 100%. Like, those aren't M80s in there. They're like whole sticks of dynamite that are blowing up. If they did that to the poppy fields, it would ruin the poppy fields for 10 years for 3 reasons. 1, when you burn a poppy, it doesn't regrow. Number 2, it also would contaminate the soil and make it acidic, so it would not. It's already on a very borderline. The measure right there. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, you want to talk about energy report? Here we go, guys. Ask yourself honestly, why is marijuana legal? Some of you just went, oh. By the way, if I told you that a substance dehydrated you instantly, made you make poor judgment and decisions so that you could not be around anything from a vehicle to a knife and make good decisions with them, told you that it would hurt your heart, your liver, your stomach, and your spleen irrevocably, not to mention the work your kidneys have to do to get rid of it, and I told you that you could buy this by the liter and you go with the marketing brand that you really like, and just collectively, just seeing all of the risks associated with it, you say, why do we let that sit out there? Why do we forget about kids getting it? Talking about alcohol. Right? Meanwhile, a drug like marijuana gives you a buzz, lets you feel a little chill, helps you relax, doesn't keep you on edge all the time. Oh, and by the way, the alcohol is a huge downer, but it's not a downer, it's a downer. It is a depth charge bomb where marijuana makes you go like this. Hey, man, what's going on? Right? Yeah, marijuana and hemp are not the same. But categorically, Janet, they used to tie the two of them together because they couldn't tell it apart. Like that, there's also like a lack of education, like a willing lack of education to be like, well, I don't know the difference. They should just all be illegal. What kind of dipshittery is this, right? We don't use medicine to help us be medicine. And by the way, thank goodness there are opium fields in the world. Because right now I just learned that somebody else that I know got moved to palliative care and they're going to be on morphine probably starting now. She had stage 4 cancer. She came back. She did great for about 2 years. And she found out December 10th that it all was coming back. And she said, I'm good, everybody. I love you. By the way, her trip when she went into remission was Sedona. Thought I'd tell you that. Yeah, Warrior Widow. It's the part that I literally laugh out loud with is when you're driving and the car in front of you reeks like weed. That's where I'm kind of like, guys, like, be smart about it. Don't be a dipshit about it. Right? Yeah, but meanwhile, alcohol has to be created, distilled, processed. Marijuana, you can take it off the plant, dry it, and smoke it. I have never touched pot. Been in tons of bands, hung out in backstages, saw piles of drugs, pills by the fistfuls, never touched them. Just didn't feel the need. I had a vodka every now and again, but I didn't need it. I did not need it. I love the side conversation in all of this. But why do we legalize marijuana? Because they want another thing in your repertoire to take you down a notch. This year, more than any other year, I had people say to me, there you go. Julie, I love that story. Oh, and I don't want to get too far with this. Yeah, one time alcohol was illegal and cocaine was legal. Yeah, they used to put it in things. By the way, Brienne, congratulations on 4 years. That stuff never gets past me. You know that, right? So we're being controlled in a new way. I see that word. Thanks, Elizabeth. We miss the boat on a lot of these things, right? Yeah, Coca-Cola originally had cocaine in it, right? So there's been this slow progression of like what we give up, right? What we lose our sight over, and how people begin to, kind of recognize that, boy, you let go of one addiction or one addictive thing, and then here comes another one. It's like we're constantly the people that listen. The world is upset that the United States is letting us down. If we were honest with ourselves for 10 minutes, and we would say the United States has been letting us down for a long time as citizens, right? Warrior Widow, that's the stuff we need to see. Yeah, and Brienne, yeah, one moment at a time. I love that. There's also the part of this too where we villainize. It's crazy. It's like they let the stuff in, and then we villainize the addict. We villainize the alcoholic. We villainize the drug addict, right? And it becomes like we look at our patterns and we're like, the harsh reality is that this really isn't anything new. The fact that we hired a criminal to run our company is like, what the fuck? By the way, nobody, picture it. If you had a company and you had nobody apply for your job, or you had one person and another person that you thought was marginal, you wouldn't just hire the marginal person for the most important position of your company. You just wouldn't do it. Right? Hey, Donna, how are you? You would never just hire somebody off the street and be like, oh yeah, let him kind of go. But then you would go through the due diligence of looking at the candidate. Where'd you go to school? What kind of experience do you have? What do you do? Then you call other CEOs. Hey, they used to work for your company. What can you tell me about this guy or gal? Right? But for some reason, becoming an asshole is an asset. That's why we all died at the election. That's why we died. Because we saw this guy be a bully and a train wreck of a human and having no redeemable qualities of anybody that we would actually want in our life, let alone hire them to run our beloved company. And now he's becoming the president. The background check came back and you're like, having been the person in position to make the judgment call when somebody comes back with a felony. By the way, it is not illegal for you to not hire somebody when they have a convicted felony. It's not illegal to hire them. It is also legal to say, I'm sorry, but our standards and practices put us here. Right? And the only reason why you can do that is because the United States government, you can be prejudiced to an applicant that has a felony because the United States government has a prejudice against you serving in the military, you serving in Congress, not House of Representatives, by the way, and to be a judge or work for a DA. But that typically boils down to it is an applied law through the district attorneys and by the Bar Association. The Bar Association basically said, we're going to bring in this law of practice. But for some goddamn fucking reason, the felon can get in as president. This is the problem, guys. This is the problem. Because we're becoming crippled by our loopholes. And once upon a time, we didn't need our loopholes because the spirit of the law worked. The spirit of religion worked. The spirit of our faith worked. Now it's a grift and it's a fundraising opportunity. Ask Joel Osteen. Now it's, I believe in ghosts. Well, go ahead and prove it to me. I've done over 25,000 readings in my career. That is either an incredible success rate in ability, precision, captivation, and healing, or I'm so fucking nuts, I'm an opium field. It's amazing to me. Yeah, this buyer's remorse thing is going to go deep. I will say this to you. There will be a sympathetic, empathetic thing to Trump here soon. I am telling you, we are getting set up for the biggest false flag. The biggest false flag we are ever going to see in the history of our lives. It's coming. Don't believe it. Just don't believe it. One other thing I wanted to touch on with the energy report, I'll make this quick. Have you been watching what's been happening to Young Turks? The racism is greater than the buyer's remorse. Well, isn't that revealing? Thank you for not calling me an opening appeal. I think, listen, what happened in Pennsylvania was 100% horse hockey with that. And one of the things that I'm just going to use a lot of vaguenesses because I don't want people to come back and blah, blah, blah. I had an opportunity to have more than one discussion with a larger media group that couldn't get past the fact that I was a medium. They were like, we like your stuff. We like your take. We like that it's unique. We've always wanted to kind of have like an astrological energy report type of thing. And it was not Young Turks. I'm just going to say that. But they're competitive with them. But they were like, we don't really like that you're a medium. Like you lead with medium brand accounts. It's one thing if you're a medium, but we don't want you to lead with that because there's some legal things to that. And I said, well, everything on your channel is opinion. You might use facts to back up your opinion, but you're basically running a giant op-ed. You know, everything about TYT and any of those groups, you know, Pac-Man, and again, they all do good work in various levels. You know, Brian Taylor Cohen, I have a lot of respect for. I think I was ready for him to fight and he didn't. And I'm okay with that, but I don't think he did it to position himself. But Jank basically went in and did like a Q&A with Charlie Kirk to like mend the fence and open the dialogue and do like all of this stuff. And I'm watching this and I'm like, you're literally kissing the ring, Joe Scarborough. And that is really why I'm going to launch this new thing. And some pieces have to fall into place for me to announce all the pieces to it. But more than a medium media network is going to be a thing. And it is because these guys basically told me I was still a little too, I'm conservative, guys. Like here's a little insight. You would call me, if you were going to land me on the metric in 2016, 2015, I was oppositionally defiant to, my point of view was, I think we need to be fiscally conservative. I think that we need to uphold, I don't think we need any more laws. I don't think that we need to say, you know, if you hurt somebody because of their gender or their protective class, then that is an amp up. I don't think that we need that. Murder is wrong. We don't need to say what type of murder it is to make it wronger. Like you become a functional illiterate with that. Let's just apply the laws as we have them. You know, what you're doing is creating emotion and sympathy. On the other side of this, I think social programs are incredibly, and I'm back. I think social programs are incredibly important because not only does it create a safety net, it also creates a modality of what you should do. Like it sets the pace to be able to say, I want to care for my neighbor. I don't have the resources to do it, but all of us do. You know, but then we need judicious experience to be able to apply that. And let's put, you know, Finbar, I'm going to use you here for a second. We're going to put Finbar in charge of distributing the money when somebody, you know, gets displaced, when somebody gets, you know, when they lose their job, when they have a medical crisis. Like we need social structure to say the bottom isn't down here. The worst it's going to get is right here. And pull it together in the idea that we're not going to fall below the belt. And by the way, anybody that's ever been on unemployment knows what that is. When you suddenly only have, I don't know what the going rate is now, $425 a week, that gives you $1,700 a month. Everybody here on this channel knows that $1,700 a month is going to give you this much. It's going to give you this much room. You're going to have to call these 3 companies and say, I'm sorry, I can't pay right now. You're going to have to cancel these 2 things, but you're going to be able to eat and you're going to be able to stay in your home. It is not meant to be a sit at home, take a chill pill, no problem. Like it's not meant to be that. What it's meant to be is enough for you to not fall below the Mendoza line. But you do dip below the Mendoza line because everybody knows that it's not sustainable. But it is able to make sure you don't fall down to the bottom, so to speak. On the other side of that, anything where people are paying into something, I know you are. Black belt, I'm talking to you. I know it. And in the dynamic of being able to kind of like pull this forward, what we need to do is to be able to say, we have these things. And by the way, every single one of those programs needs help. They need the dose of reality to say $1,700 a month as a max is not going to work. Right? It realistically should be 2,200, 2,500. Again, we're not making it so that people can stay at home. What we're doing is we're making it so that during your job search, you at least can sleep at night. But we have such a backwards way about how we look at it. Instead of fixing the problems, we villainize it. We get obsessed with the problem, not the solution. We get obsessed with the unemployed person. Like, why can't you find a job? What's wrong with you? Fuck you. I'm not a cultural fit. You know what that means to me? You're a free thinker. You're a free thinker. You're in a position where yeah, sure, it's protecting you, but you can get too much protection at that point, right? Neurodiverse. I'm neurospicy. Like I said, just like the company I mentioned earlier, we love to start and we love to praise up here, but the process, guys, listen, I've been there. I've been there. Doing this work, having this success. And by the way, I have no problems sharing this. Remember that video that I made about the election and, all of the other, accolades and the, 56,000 people that saw it? Like, you're like, wow, Brandon, you're really killing it, right? That's awesome. I'm going to tell you that between the videos that I've made and you guys joining the sponsorships and that sort of thing, all that stuff, the sponsorships are still like 70% of the revenue out of this, right? I made $289. How is that equitable? It's not, but whatever. On the other side of that, I want to say thank you for your efforts. Thank you for being part of this. I really do appreciate it. Don't think I'm living high off the hog. On the other side of this, I've been there where Christmas Eve, I was like, I can tell you in my adult life, there's been at least 5 Christmas Eves that I literally had to shut off my phone because I was getting calls and opening up my bank account, going zeros and negatives and whatever. But on the other side of that, I'm like, okay, I can figure this out. Not I'm smart enough. It was more of like, I can figure this out. And every year I'd have a new plan, and then I would fall into different traps. I'm like, oh my God, it's my routine. Why do I have to buy all that? Why do I have to donate that money? Why do I have to do those things? Why do I have to? And I found myself not putting my mask on first. And that was my lesson in it. And when you work with money, money is energy, right? And Black Belt, you did not want to have that money anymore because guess what? You didn't want that energy. You just didn't want that energy. You're neurological. And there's nothing wrong with you. And by the way, what do you really want to do when you grow up? Let's start kicking the tires on what you really want to do. You want to just survive? Oh yeah, the housing thing is a mess. Paula, how are you? The housing thing is a disaster. Properties are so overvalued. I mean, it's funny. The landlord here, and by the way, I know he doesn't watch, so I'm going to talk shit. He doesn't know how to actually clear a parking lot. There's 54 spots. So where I am, there's 4, like, they're cabins. They're kind of cool. And by the way, I got to wrap up here because I got to get the studio up and running here. But yeah, and you know what? Black Belt, let yourself feel like that for just a minute. Let that be your motivator. But here's this dipshit that buys this place. And I was ready to get a couple of investors. I knew 2 other companies that would have loved to have been a part of this entire thing. And it was the energy of it. Instead, they have this guy come in, some doctor, owns a couple of buildings, owns like a CVS and doesn't. It's just, It's like he has doctor's offices and post offices. This is a working space. Like there's a salon next door. There's a church next on the other side of me. How do you like that? I'm in between the hair salon and the church. Yeah. And then a jujitsu place and then a photography place. So like we're all pretty well established businesses. I don't have as many people coming in and out as when I had a shop up front, but now it's a studio. Like, okay, needs of the people, needs of me. And he doesn't know how to plow the parking lot. Right? My space is awesome. I kind of enjoy it. Yeah, Brienne, I totally get that. And that space in between Christmas and New Year's was like my motivation. And this year I'm like, I'm okay. Whatever that means to me. I'm okay. I can get through the day. Right? And one of the things that I noticed about this landlord, the only time he contacted me was when I was late with the rent. So I'm a dick, right? So I purposely didn't pay him on time. Had the money sitting right there. Oh, guess it didn't go through. Oh, wasn't really sure what was going on. Oh, you didn't get that yet? Did you check the mailbox, did you? And then he's like, send it right to my bank, put it through, what is it, Zelly? I said, I'm not really comfortable with using that app. And he goes, well, that's the way you're going to pay me moving forward. The fuck you will. Guess what? Your check is right here. Come get it. By the way, legally, I don't have to come to you for the check. Oh, I also don't have to mail it. I can inform you that it's sitting on my front desk. I'll tape it to the window so you don't have to come inside. So weird you didn't get it. Like, are you sure? Did you wait? Hold on. Let me make sure I have the address right. 123 Shergan Street. Is it Shergan or Sherman? Oh, that's not it at all. That explains everything. I'll get it to you as soon as I want. Right? Black Bell, we got you, kid. So he literally sends a message this morning. Was it this morning? Yeah, it was this morning. I was teaching a class. I look down and I see him say, hey, just to let you know, the water bill was excessive this month. So you're going to need to add on $100 to your rent this month. Pennies are a legal form of tender. Not only am I not going to pay the $100, I am also going to start billing him for when I shovel out there. I'm going to let him know that I've watched people slip and fall, and I've given them his number. Now, I don't wish ill on anybody. I don't want them to be sued, but I'm certainly... Yeah, it's fucking illegal, Phoenix. You can't change the lease. Bing, bing, bing. All right, guys, one more time. If you want to participate, oops, it's not legal. tbrandonruss.com. Sign up for the email list. Go there right now. Get on the. You can either take the Q&A for conscious becoming, or be involved in our New Year's Eve sound bath and work and meditation. I'm going to start everything 10 p.m. tomorrow night. Still want to join us? By the way, only if you've signed up for the midnight meditation will you be read. It's an exclusive. I got a list. I know your names. go ahead and sign up. You're not going to offend me. It is a pay what you will, but it's free if that's where you're going with it. I'm cool with that. I think it's an important thing for people to be a community right now, and I hope you guys get that I'm building a community here, because I did some things in the past that just ruined community, and I'm not doing that anymore, right? Hopefully, read it. You might. That's why we're recording it for the over crowd. All right, guys. Thanks so much for being part of the journey, Serena. Thanks for being part of the family here. Going to give you guys a hard tops. Thanks so much for being part of things, and keep going. We'll see you tomorrow.